All right. Looks like we are good. Hey, everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of the Mando Method Podcast. I am your co-host and bourbon drinker, Armand Rosamilia.
And I'm the other co-host, and let's say rye whiskey drinker. How's that?
All right,
Chuck Buda.
I'll give that one to you, Chuck. We have two really cool guests. I've chatted with them before. Chuck, this will be your first time, and I could tell we're going to have a lot of really good stories. We've been chatting for a while before we hit the record button too, which is always a lot of fun. But before we get to them, of course, we have to talk about what I'm drinking, what Chuck is hopefully drinking. Reaper's Brew Coffee, that's right. Veteran-owned company, horror-themed company. Two flavors, Murder Mud, which is their regular, Electric Chair, which is their high caffeine. You can get K-Cups. Obviously, we can get subscription. They are delicious. And here's the cool part, reapersbrew.com, and use Mando at checkout, M-A-N-D-O. You get 10% off of new orders, plus you receive a free gift. So check them out. Once again, we are very happy. I actually got my order this week. Came in for, I got a bag of each. So we will be doing the... in 17 days, as we're recording this, Chuck, you will be in my house. We'll be hanging out with a bunch of authors doing MondoCon, which is I invite authors to my house to come for a weekend. My wife cooks food, a ridiculous amount of food. And between all of that, we all sit around and write and usually make fun of Chuck. So it's a good time. But now let's introduce our guests. And as if people don't know who you guys are, let everybody know who you guys are.
I'm Robert J. Sawyer up here in Toronto, Canada. I'm a full-time science fiction writer. Just finished my 25th novel. I'm probably best known for the novel Flash Forward that was made into an ABC TV series back in 2009. And Ace and I will talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure. And my most recent novel out is The Oppenheimer Alternative.
My name is Nzondi, formerly known as Ace Antonio Hall. I am the first African-American to win a Bram Stoker in the novel category. I'm actually almost done with my fifth novel. And man, I'm just glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
So obviously you guys have some history together.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to start here. I'm going to start how you two met.
Well, back in 2009, as I alluded in the introduction, ABC made a TV series based on my novel, Flash Forward. And I think it was during the filming of the pilot, I was there, on set, watching everything happen, a wonderful experience. And I noted this gentleman across the room who, whenever there was a break, opened up his laptop and was writing. And I thought, I know a writer when I see one. So I went over and introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm Rob. I wrote the novel that this is all based on. I said, are you a writer? He said, I sure am. And a friendship that has lasted now for 13 years, and I'm sure will last well into the future, got its start there. By pure coincidence, we happened to meet. Because Ace, you were an extra during that episode and some of our other episodes too.
Yeah. So, for those of you who believe in coincidences or don't believe in coincidences, I don't even know if Rob, if you know this part. So before that, I was teaching. I taught in New York for about 13 years. I was an associate director of education for some New York schools, as well as the Civil Learning Center in Northridge. And I wanted to learn how to write, first of all, and I wanted to write. So I quit that job and I started doing extra work and stand-in work. And and I had to learn how to write. I wanted to learn how to write novels. I went to school for screenwriting. It's a whole different discipline. It's like, some people think it's the same, but it's like being a doctor and an attorney. But I wanted to learn how to write. In the very first, so I wanted to learn how to write novels, how to learn how to write a synopsis, everything that was included in that writing process to submit and get picked up and published. And the very first synopsis that I studied was a synopsis for a novel called Hominids. And when I saw Rob's card, on his card, he had the list of some of the books and novels that he had published. And when he gave me his card and he left, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. I just met, the guy that this whole production is based on is a novel. That's awesome. And I looked at his card and I said, hominids. And I pulled up, it was right there in my laptop. I pulled up my laptop and I looked and I said, oh my God, this is the guy I've been studying.
All right. I did not know that. That's fabulous. Yeah. Hominids, which came out in 2002, and it's my novel that won the Hugo Award.
And Robert, of course, have won, I don't know, maybe 45, 46 other awards. One of the top awarded novelists and science fiction writers of our time, period. Don't care if it's from Canada, Britain, United States, period, in the world. And, I was very happy to really meet him and befriend him. And he was the only person who told me, I asked him, I said, hey, a lot of my friends, because I joined a group called Greater Los Angeles Writer Society, and a lot of the members in that group are just starting, and a lot of them are into self-publishing, which is great. And I asked him, I said, hey, should I self-publish? And Robert said to me, Ace, you're a great writer. I don't know how he knew that at the time. He said, you're a great writer. You deserve to be published and be picked up by a publisher. You deserve that. And I went that route. And sure enough, I got published maybe within a year after that. So thank you, Robert. So this is great.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure. And I mean, just to underscore what you said about yourself in the introduction, you just won a Bram Stoker Award, which is the Horror Writers Association's top achievement award. And happened to be the first African-American to win it in that category, the novel category. But it's a terrific award from a terrific association. And I knew you were a great writer. So you were going to go on and win a major award.
Appreciate that. And it's come full circle. I spoke about it earlier before we went on air, that I don't think it's no coincidence, that word again, that a lot of my books, the subtext of the book and the theme is about the consciousness. And I'm very interested in how we can, how technology can at one point, maybe not in our lifetime, but in the next lifetime or the lifetime after that, I believe really in the next, 3 decades, we'll probably be able to somehow harness the consciousness and find out a lot more about it. Because right now, not a lot is known about it. And
yet it's the fundamental human experience, being self-aware, having an inner life, having an inner dialogue. Absolutely. Yeah, it fascinates me, and it's in a lot of my fiction. And I'm very glad that it kind of inspired you to explore it in your fiction.
Absolutely.
Robert, you've done a lot for him now. Could you rub some of that off on me and Chuck? I think it's somebody else's turn.
I got to get another TV show, and then you got to become an extra.
All right.
And then during the breaks, when everybody else is rating craft services, you got to be actually sitting there and writing a book.
See, that's where me and Chuck would go wrong. We'd be rating craft services.
That's one of the perks, right, of being on a film set is there's food.
That would be the problem.
And I'll tell you, on Flash Forward, David Goyer was the director of the pilot and also showrunner for a time. And Dave had worked on big films, including Batman Begins. And he said, I always budget extra for craft services, not just, the usual stuff that ABC Studios, where we would be at, would do. But I always go a step farther. I think you get a way better performance out of a well-fed cast and crew, and that it's money absolutely well spent.
I agree.
That's pretty funny. Oh, by the way, before I know Chuck has a question, but before we get to that, my wife went to Victory Christian Academy.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's tiny little school.
Now, that's in Jacksonville, Florida?
Yeah.
Isn't Jacksonville just over the border from Georgia?
Yeah, it's we're South Georgia.
Yes.
Pretty much.
So do you know that the sets for Star Trek Continues are very near there in Kingsland, Georgia?
Yeah, that's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I flew. Star Trek continues being a very well-regarded fan film series, continuing the original series, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and I was lucky enough to write the final 2 episodes of that series.
Oh, wow.
But we flew into Jacksonville and went Kingsland. Yeah, so if you're still in that neighborhood, I can hook you up to get you a set tour.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, that
It's
would
just
be.
incredible. The whole sets as they existed on Stage 9 at Desilu back from
Wow.
66 to 69. Yeah.
I'm going to
that's-
call that one in when I go down there. 'cause I
You
would like
betcha. Absolutely. Yeah.
Make sure you call me and let me know when you're going. What
Absolutely.
do you got,
Chuck,
Chuck?
what you got?
All right. So obviously, and congratulations to both of you for being, so highly regarded and on the awards, because obviously that's something that I think we all aspire to. But I guess talk about some of the process for the awards. I think one of the hardest thing for, at least for myself and probably a lot of other authors, is that self-promotion. So when you go for those awards, is it a lot of self-promotion, or do you have people who are in your corner, leading the charge? I guess talk about that whole process. And I'm going to take a lot of notes and see who I can get on my side. So.
Well, the first thing you got to do is write an award caliber work. It seems obvious, but there are an awful lot of people out there hustling for awards who have basically written drivel and have no prayer on earth of convincing other people that they've done the best of the year in whatever award category or award genre that they're going after. When I started out in this field, campaigning was very much frowned upon. And I'm very proud of the fact that, I won the Science Fiction Fantasy Writers of America's Nebula Award in 1996 and the Hugo Award in 2003, back when nobody kind of made a public statement about their eligibility or pushed it. All of that has changed. Now on social media, everybody is saying, hey, I've got something that's eligible for consideration. Give me a chance. But really, it means the most when it comes out of the blue. I've got behind me here an award I just won last week for my trilogy, Wake, Watch, and Wonder. It came out in 2009, 10, and 11 about the World Wide Web gaining consciousness at an organization out of the blue called the Machine Intelligence Foundation for Rights and Ethics, which looks for pop culture works that portray a win-win relationship between humanity and artificial intelligence, found my novels and decided that they were award caliber. And there was nothing I could do to move that process forward except having written something that at least somebody thought was worth giving an award.
Yeah, I agree with that. My process really was to write, to add to the literary world. I wanted to do a piece of work that didn't just saturate, but that really added to the genre or genres. And in order to do that, I had to study a lot. I took classes. I took online classes. I befriended a lot of classical writers of our time and just listened to them and spoke to them and interacted with them and asked a lot of questions. But the biggest thing that I did is I read a lot. I remember the first year of the first book that I published, that year before that, prior to that, I read maybe 50 books in that genre, just to really I wanted it to be a part of who I was. I wanted it to be innate, to really understand, the tropes, what was good, what was bad, what was funny, what was usual, all of the different things in those genres. And then I had to write a lot. A good friend of mine, not a good friend, a great acquaintance of mine, David Gerald.
Well, he's a good friend of mine, so you're 1 degree of separation from Dave.
He told me, you got to write about 1 million words. Until you write 1 million words, it's all practice. And right around the time that I, was published, I'd written about 1 million words. And so it was the process of writing, reading, and learning and studying, and really just polishing my craft, really being passionate about polishing my craft to the point that I wanted to add to the genre. That, then at that point, it really left no it wasn't up to me at that point. Then I had a team of people who encouraged me to keep going, and a lot of friends and whatnot. And it wasn't really like campaigning. I didn't really do anything like that. But I believe that just my process and my work ethics was what got me to the point that to win an award.
And just to put a little footnote on that, of course, David Gerald, if the name doesn't immediately ring a bell, is most famous for writing the Trouble with Tribbles episode of the original Star Trek series, but went on to be a Hugo and Nebula winner in his own for later work that was entirely in his own universes. Fabulous guy.
And Rob, every time that when I've been with him and I mentioned that, he says, Ace, I've written more than that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is the unfortunate thing for David because, he was the youngest writer at the time to sell to Star Trek. He had just graduated with a degree in screenwriting, and this was his first sale of any type, and it went to Star Trek, and just has had a fame beyond almost any other Star Trek episode from the original series. Everybody, if they know Star Trek at all, knows the Tribbles.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
So don't peak too early. I get it.
Yeah.
And David did it. David had great works that came later.
That's a tough one to follow up.
Yeah, of Dave's work, absolutely.
Once you start winning awards like this, is there a pressure for you to repeat? Is there a pressure for you to go, okay, I just won a Stoker, so does my next book need to be on that? Do I need to write something that is a Stoker, so I'm on the ballot every year? I mean, do you guys feel that kind of pressure once you start winning?
Well, I can say I just did an interview yesterday, and one of the questions was, do I have the same writing process for each novel? And, maybe when I first started, I probably would answer, yes, I do this, I do this, and I do that. But, now the only way I could have explained it is it's kind of like if you have children, it's like by the time you have the second child, you realize you can't have the same process of teaching the second child like you had the first. They respond differently. You've lived different experiences. You've learned different things. And it's just a whole different approach. You try, but it's a whole different experience. And for me, each novel, depending on what time of day it is, or what my thought process is, or what the theme is, or what I want to work on, what the characters are, who they are, it's different. And so the pressures to write a award-winning novel really doesn't come into play, not for me, because I'm just so focused on trying to make this baby, raise this baby up to be the best that it could be. That's all I'm really focused on, so.
I've been lucky enough to be nominated, I think, 9 times for the best novel Hugo, and I won it once out of those 9 times. Wasn't my first nomination, and it wasn't my last nomination. Somewhere in the middle of the pack, I won the award. But once you've won the award, it'll say forever on the book covers, Hugo Award-winning author for me, Bram Stoker Award-winning author for Nzondi. It'll say that, and you don't have to do it again. You've proven your point. I think, but Nzondi is right. You always write a ambitious work, the best thing that you can. And if it happens to gain a particular accolade, that's wonderful. But if it doesn't, you still know in your heart that you've done the best work you can do.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well said.
Talk about the writing process. What Armand and I do at the end of the year on this show, and also at the beginning of the year, is we kind of go through our goals and we review, what we wanted to achieve. And at the beginning of the year, we start by going through the next year's goals. And a lot of times we focus on releases, but also on word count. Where do you both stand in terms of your professional goals? Do you start out and say, I want to come out with 2 books this year, or I'm just going to write 200,000 words and hope that creates 1 good novel or 2 good novels or something? I guess talk about like how you guys structure your professional year.
You want to start?
Oh, all right, if you like. I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky. I made a very good living writing science fiction, and I don't have to write unless I feel like writing. I'm set for life. I'm happy about that. And so I don't have any metric that I insist upon hitting. There's no word count, there's no dollar value, there's no number of releases. Uh, in fact, I'll tell you this. You said, well, how many books are you going to release in a year as one possible metric? A friend of mine who has written an enormous number of books, over 100, he and I were both speaking at a writers' conference, and he said, you know, I can understand writers who write one book a year. I just don't know what they do with the other 9 months. And, and my wife
I know who
had the
said that.
perfect response, which was polish their awards. Right? Quality takes time. So I'm not interested in cranking out a word count. I'm not interested in publishing a book. Even I did publish a book a year for most of my career. My first novel came out 32 years ago, but I've definitely slowed down. On the Oppenheimer Alternative, I did an entire year of full-time research before I wrote the first word to immerse myself in J. Robert Oppenheimer, the Manhattan Project, the history of that time and era, the science, and to, come up with something hopefully fresh and exciting about a character who had been very much written about by other people.
Yeah, as for me, now I still have a day job. And so my day job, I stand in. So I'm a stand-in actor. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically like a stunt man, except I don't do the stunts. We pretty much set up, all the scenes, the camera rehearses the moves, the light, the lighting, they get the lighting correct, and we do all that. And then the actor comes in and they shoot the scene. So, and I've been lucky enough to be on the Star Wars set, Book of Boba Fett. That was amazing. And Mandalorian. And I just finished Bel Air. And I did 6 years at How to Get Away with Murder. So my metric is that I have to write every day because I want to get to the point where that's done. And I had a great year. Financially, I had a great year last year. But I want to get to the point where I don't have to do that anymore. And I can write full-time all day, every day. Now, once I get to that point, then my metric would change, perhaps. But right now, I'm so focused because I have so many friends that are career entertainment oriented. They want to be in the entertainment field, and I watch them, and when they're downtime, they're just talking. I can't do that. My goal is, I have to write every single day. How much I write really depends on, how much free time I have. If I have free time, to me, free time is time for me to build a world, write. I don't really believe in, some people get, what is it? What you call? I don't even know. What's the term when you can't write? What is that called?
Writer's block. And
I don't even know what that is.
Not know the term.
I don't even know what. Yeah, I don't even know what writer's block is.
Yeah.
Blocked out of my mind because to me, when I'm not writing, I'm reading. When I'm not reading, I'm polishing. When I'm not polishing, I'm editing. When I'm not editing, there's some process of writing for me every single day. And when I'm not doing those things, I'm studying. And when people say, "What do you mean studying?" When I watch something, I write notes down. So I might watch something like, wow, I like the way that this scene's set up. And I write, oh, how did this open up? Look at the angle, blah, 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 blah. The character, how she responded to this or how he responded. And I write notes down. I'll watch a whole Sherlock Holmes movie and write down what and stop, start, and write down plot points. So for me, there's no writer's block. It's just a continuum of writing until, your novel is done or your short story is done.
Well, we saw this last 2 years, we really separated, as we would say in a non-gendered way, the adults from the children, because for 2 years, people used to always say, if I only had time, if I only didn't have obligations, if I don't have to go to this or go to that, I would get my novel written. Well, guess what? You just had 2 years. It may have been horrific. I mean, I have COVID. I just got off having COVID, right? I've in no way, saying that COVID was a blessing for any of us. It wasn't. But the fact that for 2 years, people had more free time and more stay-at-home time than they'd had for an awfully long time. If at the end of that, they didn't actually have a pile of pages that they'd written, then it really isn't the problem that you don't have enough time to write. The problem really is you don't have a burning desire to write. That even when there's nothing else to do, you don't do it. All right, well, then, this isn't the field you're cut out for. Maybe you're better cut out to be a reader who enjoys other people's work, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Did the last 2 years change your guys', basically how you did this? Because for me, I hate to say it, but it was good for me. I just kind of stayed the course and just kept writing and just kept doing. I'm a full-time author, so I hate leaving the house anyway. So it took out that argument of my wife going, "We have to go out to dinner. You haven't been out of the house in 2 weeks." I was like, "We can't. There's COVID out there. We got. I have to stay in my underwear in the house and sit at my computer." Was there any kind of change for either of you? So obviously, being as an actor, that there for your normal job, that had to have changed a lot as well.
Yeah, I'm guilty, Rob. I'm guilty of having that time, but it was a complicated 2 years for me. So I went through a few COVID deaths, and so I went through ups and downs of, I had all this time to write, and then I had to live cross country to take care of one of my family members, and so my mind emotionally wasn't always there. But I really thought, oh my God, I'm gonna write 4 or 5 books, but that did not happen. And I learned what binge watching is. I had never done that before. And I learned what that was all about. So I did a lot of that. But yeah, I definitely did a lot more writing than I've ever done in my life. So I did write a lot more, but I didn't accomplish as much as I thought. But again, the complexity of COVID, it changed a lot of things. Now you were at home when you wanted to spend more time with your family. Now you want to get away from your family. A lot of my friends said because it was driving them nuts. The kids couldn't go to school. It was a different time, and you just had to deal with the levels, the complexities of having all that time and all those people around you in your family. Unless you lived alone, then I guess it might be different. So for me, I didn't capitalize as much as I wanted to, but I did work harder than I ever have, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much, my and we lost some close people too to COVID, and they're very, it's a tragic, horrible thing. But just staying at home, writing and reading, which is something that I enjoy doing a great deal and learn a great deal from. I am, like Nzondi said, you got to be analyzing whatever your entertainment is, whether it's a movie or whether it's a TV show or whether it's a book. You got to ask yourself, what trick is the writer pulling here? Why did the writer do this? Why did he not, or she not, or they not do that? And it can be very, very instructive. But I must say, except for the tragedies of the losses, I quite enjoyed the last 2 years.
I went through. Me and my wife had COVID twice. We got it in the beginning, that first year,
Wow.
And then probably about 5 or 6 months ago, we got a much milder case of it. And actually, I didn't even get tested because I said I don't leave the house.
Right.
So my wife went and got tested, and she said, "Well, I have it, so that's definitely what you're going through now too." And the first one was like 2-3 weeks of we did absolutely nothing. I mean, sleep till 2 in the afternoon and get up, and by 3:30, 4 o'clock, I'm like, I'm going back to bed. Wow. I don't care if I have deadlines. I don't care what's going on. Lucky me and Chuck had recorded. We were ahead several episodes at that point, or I don't know how I would have kept going. But yeah, it changed a lot of things. It changes the perspective for all of us. You know, what's important, what's not important. Yeah, my wife was home for about 3 months, but she has a very small office, so it was good because she was in the bedroom with the door closed on telephone calls and working. And then at noon, I would knock on the door and I'd say, "Hey, you want to go to lunch? You want to make me lunch?" So we had that every afternoon, the two of us together. But by 3 months, she was like, I got to go back. Nobody was working for her was in the office. She's like, "I'm going myself. I can't work like this. I don't know how you do this." So it was fun on that. That we got to spend some of those hours together too. But I could tell at some point I was like, "Can you go somewhere because I need to take a nap?" It's like this is my 2 o'clock nap time. You know, I get to lay on the couch or like like you. I love to binge watch, and if it's a science fiction show, if it's something like I'm like she doesn't watch science fiction at all, so I'm like, okay, you need to leave. This is like I want to watch. Whatever this new thing on HBO Max is, it's sci-fi. You're not going to watch it. I need to watch this couple episodes every afternoon, or I can't just work continuously all day like this. So that was also kind of fun.
Hey, Robert, so I have a question for you. First of all, I remember seeing something somewhere, and I have notes because I couldn't remember exactly how you phrased it. I had to look it up. Where you said you would, first of all, I acknowledge that you're a futurist. I like that, that title. But I read where you said instead of science fiction, it really should be called philosophical
fiction. That's right.
I love that. And then it wouldn't be called sci-fi, it would be called
sci-fi. That's right. Exactly. Still have a lovely, silly name. Yeah, because it's really the literature of ideas, of exploring fundamental questions. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? What does the future hold? Is there any meaning to life? What is the nature, as we alluded to earlier, of the human experience, the inner life? All of that. And, I'm as pro-science a guy as you're ever going to find, but the term science fiction turns off a lot of potential readers who are interested in very big questions, but think they're going to be reading, a very technical, and there are very good technical science fiction works, but I don't think the term, which is coming up on its 100th birthday, by the way, 2026, which is just 4 years from now, will be the 100th anniversary of Hugo Gernsback, after whom the Hugo Award is named, of coining that term, science fiction. When H.G. Wells, and Mary Shelley and Jules Verne invented this genre, there was no such name for it. They didn't have a name. But with the first science fiction magazine, Amazing Stories, that debuted in 1926, we got that term for good or for evil. And I just don't think it encompasses the breadth. Sometimes people will say to me, "Don't you get tired of writing science fiction?" I said, "How could I? I can write about all times, all places, all forms of life, and even counterfactual or alternative realities that you just can't do in mainstream fiction." It's the biggest canvas any artist could ask for.
Yeah. Science fiction, you can have a mystery in science fiction. You can have a drama. You can have a police
romance. The equivalent of you mentioned you're on Mandalorian, a Western science fiction, right?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Do we have time for more questions, Armand?
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
Okay. So let's talk about the white whale. Promotion and marketing.
Okay.
If you can summarize, I guess, your wisdom for the best use of energy, time, focus, because as authors, and we hear this a lot, Armand and I, from a lot of the newer writers that listen to our show. People are like, "Do I need a website? Should I do this? Should I be on all the social media? Should I have business cards?" And at the end of the day, we try to help people stay focused on the writing and everything. But what do you guys think is really the best use of an author's energy in terms of marketing and promoting their work. And I guess it could be different depending on, if you're starting out versus, your middle of the road, or you're really mature in your writing process. But not counting that, what do you think is the best use?
Robert, do you remember that time we had dinner? I think it might have been Lost Con. I can't remember. And Larry Niven was there, and it was just a lot of incredible. All of you guys. I was like the little guy with just big eyes, just listening to everyone. And was it Larry Niven? No, it was. He passed away now.
Jerry Pornell.
I was going to say Jerry. Okay.
Yes. And he said, it always stayed with me. A couple of things he said was, always, like he told a story about he went to this little tiny small town, and he figured he'd just do it, and he did it, and it was raining that day, and a news station came by and did a little story on him, 10 minutes, and from that day on, every time he goes to that city, he sells like a phone book worth of books. And his message was, you just always have to, don't take anything for granted, even if it's a small publication, a small podcast, big publication, you just have to get yourself out there. And he said something that made a lot of sense to me. He said, don't talk about your books all the time. Let people know who you are. Right. Get to know you, get to like you. And when they get to like you and the person that you are, they buy your books. And that stayed with me as far as branding. And when I brand myself, I'm letting people get to know who I am, what I like, some of my interests, etc. But I think first you write the book. And once the book is out there or getting ready to be out there is when you start really focusing on trying to get it out to your friends and marketing it. And if you have a team, that's great. Again, I think it was Jerry Pornell or either Larry Niven that said, even the marketing people at some of the biggest, 5, they change so much. A lot of times they don't know what they're doing. So you still have to market yourself. Right. You still have to push yourself out there. And you are a business. And so you have to think of yourself as a brand, and everything that you do, reflects your product. So I say keep that in mind. If you're a horror writer, if you're a science fiction writer, and everything that you talk about is cats, and you don't have anything to do at all with cats in your writing, that might be, let them know that you like cats. That's good, but still promote within, your trope, within your genre, within your persona. So that's what I think is the best for branding.
I think the key point is that you, a human being, a member of Homo sapiens, is the brand. And so, probably my most successful of all, and I have a website, I have Twitter, I have Patreon, I have a blog, but the most successful for me just happens to be Facebook. And on Facebook, if you just go look at my feed, I'm Robert J. Sawyer with no punctuation at Facebook. You go look at my feed and you'll see I'm talking about Star Trek and Planet of the Apes and the $6 million man. That's right. And all my little, and fossils and dinosaurs and astronomy, my passions in life. And when there's a reason to mention one of my books, yes, I'll mention one of my books. I certainly put up the news that the WWW trilogy had won this MIFRE award from the Machine Intelligence Foundation for Rights and Ethics. But I wouldn't, you mention that once, and then you move on and you talk about things, you get people to say, I want to know more about that guy. I want to crawl into his head. Well, you can't. We don't have the technology yet. Yes. But here's a book I wrote, which is the closest thing you're going to get currently to crawling into my head, to see what I'm passionate about and feel, get my sense of humor, my things that move me. I like to make you laugh, make you cry, all of that. So bottom line is anything that's pretty inexpensive to do. Anything that's time consuming to the point of being burdensome, don't do. Business cards. Nzondi mentioned at the beginning that I'd handed my business card in 2009. Business cards are so cheap these days from Vistaprint. You just go and watch for them to have one of their, as they always do, sales, and get yourself some business cards. Why not? Because you'll meet somebody and they're not going to remember your name. They're not going to remember anything except I met a writer. Now, what was the name of his book? And well, oh yeah, I've got it in my wallet. The guy gave me his card. So yeah, absolutely. Market, you don't even, market is not even the right word. Just be out there and accessible. I see writers who sometimes are very aloof, and they will have these disclaimers. I ignore private messages. I, don't expect a response. Why would you do that to your customers, right? Somebody writes to me, they get a response. Somebody, sends me a private message, they get a response. Of course they do. They're interested in my work. Why would I slam my door in their face?
Yeah.
That is that and that's a lot of new authors me and Chuck talk to when we see coming up. I don't think they get that a lot of the time, because they're not used to they're used to that. I mean, how we came up is Stephen King and Dean Koontz and all these guys they're somewhere. They're billionaires and they don't talk to us kind of attitude. But now with the internet and everything, it's opened up all these people. I mean, how many times do people go nuts on Twitter? Oh my God, Stephen King just commented on my tweet, or just shared my book or something. So it's a lot of fun like that. But I say, but they're just being themselves. That's all you have to be.
Yes.
Not everything is they say, hey, how are you doing today? I'm doing great because I just finished this book and here's a link to my book.
That's right.
That doesn't work. My favorite podcast interviews that I do are, we get to the end and the host says, we didn't even mention your book. And I say, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to have a conversation. We talked about heavy metal music. We talked about growing up in New Jersey. We talked about hockey. We talked about baseball. We talked about all these other random things, coffee and bourbon and everything. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the things that interest me. I once had not too long ago, I had one where I have a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle bourbon behind me, which is about a $3,000 bottle that I got when I got a big contract. And we talked about that for about 30 or 40 minutes. Just talking about it.
You don't try Irish cream in your coffee? It's like the greatest thing ever.
Oh no, yeah, I have how many bottles would you say I have right now, Chuck, in that cart? Probably about 60 or 70 bottles of different bourbons. I mean, I'll go, Terry Bradshaw has a bourbon out, let's go find it, it's just like whatever random weird thing, I want to try all of them. And so that's what I talk about. But that's, like you said, it's part of the brand. Yeah. Branding used to be such a bad word when we were coming up. You never used that word. That was an awful marketing word. But that's what we are. We're a business. We're all a brand, and you got to have fun while we're doing this. I mean, that's one of the things. You guys are definitely having fun doing this, and it shows. And that's for me so much better than an author who comes on and just wants to talk about their book. Mm-hmm. They don't want to have a conversation. They don't want you to know what their hobbies are. They don't want you to know anything except for, hey, buy this book so I can go and do whatever I have to do. And that never sells your.
I have a question for you, Mando. What was the best concert you've ever been to? Because you mentioned metal rock. And I'm like, now I need to know what's the best concert you've been to.
So probably the best concert I've ever been to was Madison Square Garden, 1991 maybe. It was Robert Plant headlined and Cheap Trick opened.
Nice.
And Cheap Trick just played all their 45 minutes of their hits. And then Robert Plant, that was the first tour he was doing Zeppelin songs he was mixing in. And that was probably one of my favorite concerts ever.
Yeah, nice. Robert?
Best concert I ever saw, Monkees reunion tour. That probably ages me, but the Monkees, yeah.
What?
Yeah, in Toronto, probably in 1980 or thereabouts, at Ontario Place. But it was just, those guys have been part of my childhood, and
Hey, well, the
them just-
monkeys. Yeah.
people think we're monkeying around. Yeah, just wonderful.
Yeah. Chuck.
Wow.
There'll be some weird obscure thing.
No, well, I mean, my first concert ever, we had 6-row seats at what's the place in New York City in Midtown where they do the dance.
Madison Square Garden.
No, not Madison Square Garden. It's the theater.
Radio City Music Hall.
Thank you,
Oh,
Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah.
See, I'm getting old. We had 6-row seats for Iron Maiden, and that
Woo.
was the first time. We were right there. I caught the drummer's drumstick, and Queensryche opened up for them, and that was before anybody knew who Queensryche was.
Yeah.
But probably the best concert ever was the end of 2019. I took my son to see Tool. Here's where Armand makes fun of me because I'm into Tool, but I got my son into Tool when he was in like 8th grade or something, and they hadn't had an album or toured in like 15 years. And I took him to the show, and just seeing him light up from his enjoyment coming from me, because I gave that to him or opened him up to it was pretty wild. So
What about you?
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't remember the year. Had to be, oh gosh, 2002 maybe, something like that. And I had just gotten a tattoo. Well, it wasn't a real tattoo. I was trying it out to see if I would like tattoos. And I went to see, it was Mudvayne, the Deftones,
wow.
Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, and Metallica.
Well, that's a show.
And it was, oh my God. And I went into the pit for the first time. I didn't even know what the pit was. I saw the guys and I'm like, I want to do that. And I went in the pit and I'm like, oh my God. By the end of the concert, the tattoo had rubbed off and someone fell on my neck because they were, what do you call it?
Body
surfing.
surfing. Body
Oh
surfing.
my God. That was the most amazing time I've ever had. That was incredible. So I would say that.
Did you yell at Limp Bizkit and say, "Hey, we're from the same town"?
Oh, you know what? I just found out like this year that he was from Jacksonville. I'm like, oh my God, he's from Jacksonville?
Yeah, they're all those guys. My joke is always when somebody says, "Oh, you're in Jacksonville, so you know Limp Bizkit." I say, "Oh yeah, Fred Durst." I said he works at the drive-through at the Dunkin' now. He always hands me my coffee.
Wow.
Oh, red cap, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, we could do this all. We could do this all night. It's awesome talking to you guys. Hopefully, we can do this again. Hopefully, we can all meet up in person at some point in the future. That would be pretty awesome as well. Chuck, you got anything last minute before we go?
No, I'm gonna clam up now.
Perfect. I mean, but don't clam up, Chuck, with Reaper's Brew coffee.
Oh well, yeah, of course I'm gonna drink that.
Check them out. They are delicious. 2 flavors: Murder Bud, which is regular, and Electric Chair, which is the high caffeine. And when you order it at checkout, use Mando, Mando. You get 10% off of new orders, plus you receive a free gift. ReapersBrew.com. They've been our sponsor for many, many episodes now, and we enjoy them immensely. So thank you guys for coming on. That was awesome, and hopefully we will do this again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Live long and prosper. Cheers.
Oh, I love it.